Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, maybe good evening, depending on where you're joining from. Welcome to our webinar on e-bike safety approaches at work. This is a really exciting topic for us. I know that's a really one of the hottest topics in our safe routes world right now. So thank you all so much for joining in and being a part of this discussion. I'm going to move us along pretty quickly because we have a lot to cover today, and I want to make sure we have time to get to all of the goodness. So my name is Corey Johnson. I am the Senior Program and Engagement Manager here at the Safe Routes Partnership. We are a national organization, and our mission is to advance safe walking, biking, rolling, and scooting, both to schools, but also destinations that you go to in your everyday life, whether that's a park, grocery store, library, rec center, health center, all of the above, and really building healthy, thriving communities for everyone. I'll be facilitating the webinar today, and I'm zooming in from a beautiful fall day in Baltimore, Maryland. So it's nice to have you all with us. And if you want to take a moment in the chat box to introduce yourself, share your name, where you're joining us from, your connection to Safe Routes, if you're involved in the Safe Routes movement. And then also, we're talking today about e-bike safety approaches that work. And so we would love to hear from you about what e-bike safety approaches have worked in your community. Because there's something that you all are doing that you seem to be, really successful or effective in advancing e-bike safety. Maybe you'll hear some of the strategies that you're doing in your own community in the presentations today. So take a moment, just say a quick hello, and let us know what approaches to e-bike safety are working in your community. So give people a minute to do that. I see a lot of people coming into the chat saying hello. It seems like we have people from literally all over. So a very telling sign that e-bike safety and e-bikes in general are, it's a topic that's impacting all of our communities, whether you're in a big city, a suburb, or a smaller community. So yeah, thanks for joining in and being part of the discussion. And again, if you have e-bike safety approaches that are working in your community, please feel free to drop them into the chat box there. And just a few reminders before we get started today. So the webinar is being recorded. We will share out the recording afterwards. I'll send a follow-up email. So if you missed something or you want to share it with colleagues, just hang tight. We'll get the recording to you. If there are any resources that either we share or one of our speakers shares, we'll also send out the resource links afterwards. So if you missed something, don't worry about it. We got you. We'll share it afterwards. So I'll send out the link in the next few days. And then I imagine there'll be a bunch of questions. So we have our Q&A box that's open. I will ask one thing that would be really helpful is if you have questions to drop them in the Q&A box and not in the chat, because the chat can start to move really quickly and you might lose your question. So to keep things nice and organized, you could just drop your Q&A questions in the Q&A box. If you don't see the Q&A box on your toolbar, it might be hidden under the More section. So if you can't find it, just click More and then scroll down to Q&A and you should be able to see your Q&A box. So those are the main housekeeping reminders for our webinar today. And just a quick note about the work that we do here at the partnership and how we're really here to help you all and support the work that you're doing in your communities. We offer customizable workshops, trainings, presentations that are provided by our technical assistance team here at the partnership. And we really view this as being an extension of your team. So us coming in to help you advance the goals that you have in the work that you all are doing. We do this both virtually and in person. So we have a Safe Routes Learning Center workshop and trainings catalog. If there's a training idea or some support that you need, you're always welcome to reach out to our team, whether it's about safe routes to school, transportation planning, policies, programming, community engagement, which is one of my areas of passion, the state network support for your state safe routes to school program, or just designing your own. If there's a project idea that you have that we can help out with, we're always happy to do so. So feel free to reach out and use us as a resource. We love to work with your communities and support the goals that you have in advancing safe, active travel. Okay, so before we get started, we are all here to talk about e-bike safety. I'm sure that we've been hearing about e-bikes a lot. We actually just wrapped up our 2025 Safe Routes to School Virtual Summit, where we had a session on e-bike safety. And this is a continuation of that conversation and other conversations we've been having over the past, I guess, at least year, probably more than that, when it comes to e-bike safety. Last year at our in-person conference in Fort Collins, we also had an e-bike safety session and took some of those big ideas and takeaways from you all, from our, Safe Routes community, and created a list of some of the e-bike challenges that we're seeing and then also opportunities. So I won't go too in depth into this just in the interest of time, but a few of the e-bike challenges that we're seeing, kind of like defining the problem with the e-bike versus e-moto, confusion among caregivers when it comes to e-bike safety, youth lack of experience and training in e-bike safety, lack of focused educational campaigns, both for caregivers and youth, restrictive policies to e-bike crashes, an overall need for better data, and then e-bike use is dependent on safe infrastructure. And then a few opportunities that we're seeing when it comes to e-bike safety, disseminating resources, educating caregivers on e-bikes in general, e-bike education, e-bike safety, developing guidance to integrate e-bikes into safe routes to school. So we're seeing a lot of students who are just, coming to school on e-bikes. What does that look like as we are working on our safe routes to school programs? Developing resources on messaging to youth and caregivers. So as we're talking about e-bikes in our communities, where's the youth focused messaging? What are some effective messages for caregivers? Advocating for e-bike friendly policy tracking statewide laws, and leveraging existing data on e-bike safety. So again, lots of work to be done, lots to explore. We're excited to be a part of the conversation and just continue to be a platform to talk about this really important topic that again is impacting so many of our communities. And so with that, I want to do a quick introduction to one of our partners in e-bike safety, UL Standards and Engagement. They are sponsoring this webinar today. So thank you so much, UL Standards and Engagement, for your support. And we're also sponsoring the e-bike session during our Safe Routes to School Summit. And we have some folks from UL Standards and Engagement who will be sharing some words in a few minutes. For those of you who aren't familiar with UL Standards and Engagement, I wanted to quickly show a little brief video just to introduce you all to their work. So give me one moment here to swap my screen. And here's a little bit about UL Standards and Engagement.
We are UL Standards and Engagement. We make millions of products safer for you, even if you don't realize it. We do this by developing safety standards. A safety standard is like an instruction manual to guide the testing of products, services, and systems, so when you use them, they're safer for you. The world is changing, so are the risks. And through our work, we're on a mission to make the world safer for you.
All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our speakers for today. So we have a really great lineup. I have everybody listed here, but I will give everybody their own little introduction. So we have Jennifer Bradley, who will be first up. Jennifer is the Senior Manager of Partnerships at UL Standards and Engagement. You'll also have Amelia Neptune, the Director of Bicycle Friendly America program at League of American Bicyclists, followed by Anna Schnary, who's the lead primary analyst, UL Standards and Engagement, and then JC Porter, who's the Director of Parking and Transportation at Arizona State University. So we have a great lineup, and I'm going to stop talking and hand things over to the experts. So Jennifer Bradley from UL Standards and Engagement is up first to share a few words about the work that she's doing to advance e-bike safety.
Thanks so much, Corey. And we started out with our audio video working, so I think it's going to be a great session. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Wow, I'm seeing the numbers as everybody logs in. I'm so excited. We've got a big crew today to talk e-bikes. You saw a little bit in that video about who we are, but I wanted to kind of share with you guys here at the top of the webinar why we have this partnership with Safe Routes and sort of why we are involved in e-bikes. You may or may not recognize our logo from, the hundreds of products where we create safety standards, and you can see that logo on the bottom of your smoke detector or perhaps inside of your washing machine, on your hair dryer, and have a sort of sense of peace about the product that you're using, knowing that it's gone through the consensus-based process to create a standard for which that device had to live up to in order to receive that marking. So next slide, please, Corey. The reason for this partnership is because we have micromobility standards for e-bikes, e-scooters, and hoverboards. And we have come up with this great solution to a super fun device where, we want to keep you enjoying these devices, but we want to make sure you're doing so safely. So it is why we are connected to Safe Routes to Schools. We're here to bring our safety expertise and provide our standards as a solution to keep these fun devices on the road. Next slide, please. So the way that we kind of started after these safety standards were created and we were really trying to understand, what do we do with this information? What problem do we need to solve? Our insights team, which Anna Shineri is a part of, and you'll learn more from her here shortly, is we conducted a survey back in 2024 to understand sort of like the state of affairs with e-bikes. And this is, coming out of COVID, people were really excited to be buying e-bikes. The ridership was just absolutely exploding. And we realized that this is definitely something that Americans are doing more and more, kind of catching up to our European counterparts. Next slide, please. But while everybody was out having so much fun on their e-bikes and e-scooters, our survey responses told us that they didn't necessarily understand the lithium-ion battery that was powering their device. And they really hadn't received much education, or perhaps paid attention to the education that came with their device around safe charging, buying replacement batteries, where to properly charge their device overnight. And this is what gave us the answers to that question of what education we could provide as safety experts is really around this lithium-ion battery and how we can sort of fit into the equation with Safe Routes and League of American Bicyclists and others who have been in the bike space for a long time, that we could kind of be that missing link. Next slide, please. Whoop. There we go. So as the lead of partnerships here at ULSC, it is my privilege to get to work with the nonprofits you see here on the screen, as well as government leaders and others, to try to corral everyone around safety standards as a solution. We do not want to see micromobility be banned, but we do want to make sure that everyone stays safe. And so we really appreciate the partnerships that we have with these organizations that provide us a great virtual stage, sometimes in person, but an outlet to all the passionate folks such as yourselves who are really in the day-to-day of this and really kind of connect directly with you all to provide you the resources and facts that you need. So today in particular, we are going to share with you the latest project we've been doing with the League of American Bicyclists. And just thank you so much to Corey and Dave and the Safe Routes team for letting us be a part of the education today.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate your support and support of UL standards and engagement. These are really important conversations and clearly something that our community really needs. So we appreciate you sponsoring this webinar and giving us the platform to advance e-bike safety. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Amelia from the League of American Bicyclists. Amelia, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Corey, and thanks, Jennifer, as well. So again, my name is Amelia Neptune. I am the director of the Bicycle Friendly America program at the League of American Bicyclists. Next slide. And if you aren't familiar with the League, we are a national nonprofit advocacy organization. We were originally founded in 1880 as the League of American Wheelmen. A group of bicyclists came together to advocate for the very first paved roads. And for over 140 years, we've been advocating for bicyclists to have better places to bike ever since. So today our mission continues in a similar vein to lead the movement to create a bicycle-friendly America for everyone. Next slide. And we do that through a number of programs, including our Smart Cycling program. I see a lot of LCIs are on the call today. The Smart Cycling program is our education program where we have curriculum and we train and certify people to teach bike safety in their communities, both to children and to adults, including bicyclists and drivers. And that does now include e-bike related curriculum, which I'll talk more about in a moment. We also host the National Bike Summit every year, which is an advocacy event in addition to a conference, which I will also talk more about. We have resources for local advocates to do the important work they're doing on the ground all over the country, including for National Bike Month and related, a wide variety of bike-related research and reports and data collection, and including policy statements on issues like e-bikes. So I'll drop one link in the chat right now, which is our policy statement on e-bikes, if that is a helpful resource for anyone. I'll be dropping a number of links in the chat as I'm speaking, but this is one just to start us out. Next slide. And then finally, the program that I run is the Bicycle Friendly America program. And this is the program, the flagship program at the League, where every other year we rank all 50 states on how bicycle friendly their policies are. And then we have opt-in programs for communities, businesses, and universities. Next slide. Thanks, Corey. And if you're curious, you can find the map, the interactive map of awards through the Bicycle Friendly America program on our awards database map, which I just put in the chat. And as you can see, we've got awardees in all 50 states. Over 460 communities are currently awarded. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the numbers of businesses and universities. So we're all over the country. And if you go to the next slide, one thing I really want to emphasize for our business program in particular is that we use the term business very broadly. So this includes entities like churches and preschools and airports and fire stations. So anything that can be a destination, a workplace, an organization is eligible for bicycle-friendly business status. And if you go to the next slide, I especially wanted to emphasize this because it includes schools. Since 2017, we have welcomed over 30 schools and school districts to the Bicycle Friendly Business Program. And on the screen here, you can see just a few examples. In Arlington, we've got the HB Woodlawn Secondary Program, which I always love using their photos of their phenomenal bike parking. And in the very small town of Littleton, New Hampshire, Littleton High School just joined the BFB program this past summer. And some of the things they're doing includes being in a rural setting, they're doing trail maintenance with their students and taking students out on trails. But they also have a Project Bike Tech program, and they mentioned on their application that they were starting to teach their high school students about how to work on e-bikes through Project Bike Tech. So I thought that was worthy of a shout out. But one other link I'll put in the chat while we're on the topic of schools is when we certified our very first school in the Bicycle Friendly Business Program. We highlighted them on our blog. So that was Oceano Elementary School out in California. And so if you're curious to see what it takes to be a BFB as a school, since this is a Safe Routes community, I wanted to share that. All right, next slide. So now to dive a little bit deeper into the program, and then I'll connect it to e-bikes. Every entity that applies to the BFA program is evaluated on our 5E awards criteria. And then for those that meet the criteria, we give out award levels, bronze through platinum, and we give feedback to everybody, regardless of their award level, for how they can improve. Next slide. And it's really important for us to emphasize that this is not a participation trophy, in that not everyone that applies gets an award level. So 63% of first-time applicants in the BFC program don't get an award. There's an honorable mention category and then no award category. But again, everybody that applies gets feedback. Next slide. And so finally, to bring all of this back to e-bikes, e-bikes are becoming a bigger and bigger topic, as we heard from Corey and Jennifer, and as all of you know, and that's why you're here today. And so e-bikes are a great example of why the Bicycle Friendly America program and the application and the award standards constantly need to evolve to sort of keep up with changing technology, changing policies, changing best practices. So just to give a snapshot of sort of the places that we're seeing e-bikes fall into the 5 E's. Safe places to ride, recognizing that e-bikes are faster moving and heavier vehicles compared to a regular bike. Recognizing that e-bike owners and users need safe places and secure places and convenient options to store and charge their bikes. And this especially comes up in places like university campuses where you have students that live on campus and need a place to charge their e-bike. And workplaces where someone is parking their bike for 8 hours a day or more after a long commute, and they might need to charge up in the middle of the day. Also thinking about the secure charging storage options, e-bikes are more expensive and the theft concerns are much higher. So from a community standpoint, thinking about this security of bike parking to meet the needs of e-bikes. And then e-bike specific education, bike share and lending programs, and subsidies and rebates. Next slide. So to dial in a little bit more to the education, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Smart Cycling Education Program here at the League, and we have partnered with People for Bikes and Bicycle Colorado to develop some e-bike specific curriculum, including some online learning opportunities. So I'm putting those 2 links in the chat where you can learn more about our education program and even find online learning modules called eBike Smart. So these are great resources for you to use or to share in your community if the concern is getting people up to speed on what they need to know from a safety standpoint before riding an e-bike. Next slide. The bike share, bike lending, and e-bike rebate topics are all about sort of getting bikes into the hands of people who need them and can use them. And we're seeing this especially as a powerful tool as thinking about workplaces and from the university and college standpoint, sort of departmental bike share programs where they're finding that e-bikes are replacing car trips. They're able to use it for hauling cargo used by student organizations and by things like facilities departments on larger campuses. And so this is something we want to encourage, and we're really trying to help places find ways to integrate e-bikes into the sort of workplace or the campus where it could be displacing car trips, especially, and sort of in the workplace setting. So I think these are 2 really exciting examples. Next slide. But you're also seeing various bike share and bike lending opportunities, including in urban areas where there are, citywide bike share programs, also campus-specific bike share programs, like you can see on the slide with UC Davis. But again, even in smaller communities, you've got places where, a local bike shop or a gear rental place, like Franconia Base Camp, which is in our BFB program, they partnered with their local school just to give teachers an opportunity to ride e-bikes for an afternoon. So there are lots of ways to sort of help people get introduced to e-bikes, to test out e-bikes without necessarily having them need to purchase an e-bike. And we've been really excited to see these various kinds of programs because letting people sort of test it out, try it, and also from an educational standpoint, having more people experience riding an e-bike before they're deciding whether or not to buy one is a really great practice. Next slide. So next, moving on to the engineering category of those critical pieces of places to securely store and charge your bike or your battery. This is also not only an engineering topic, but an equity and accessibility topic because, again, having not only access to the bike, but a place to charge the bike if you're reliant on a bike, say, for your work. This has become a really hot topic in places like New York City. And so we're seeing a lot of innovation in those places too. So on the screen here, you can see a really innovative thing of a battery swap / charging lockers in New York City. These are popping up in other large cities as well. And this is where someone can sort of safely and securely put their e-bike battery into the locker, have it be charged. And in this case, it's actually a battery swapping opportunity. But this is just one example where the technology is sort of continuing to evolve, and the opportunities for what people can do to solve their challenges is going to continue to evolve as well. Next slide. On a smaller scale at workplaces, we're seeing things like indoor secure bike storage rooms. This is from another one of our bicycle-friendly businesses out in California, Sonoma Clean Power. They've got a really great e-bike charging room for their employees to charge their own personal bikes, and also where they store and charge their shared bikes. And they are also a business that have put out a lot of resources to their community in Santa Rosa, California, around the topic of e-bikes. They've got guidebooks and things like that. And that was one of the things that earned them bicycle-friendly business status. All right, next slide. And then finally, I wanted to bring us back to the college and university sort of environment where we were seeing that e-bikes were becoming such a big challenge and a giant question for campuses in the bicycle-friendly university program, because we found that the majority of schools in the program had more questions than answers when it came to how should they allow their students to bring e-bikes and e-scooters and other e-devices to their campus. What should the policies be around standards for what good bike parking should look like, what bikes or batteries should be allowed on the campus, and whether there should be charging facilities. So that is why we started partnering with UL Standards of Engagement to do the research that Anna is going to share in a few minutes. But we also added these specific questions to the Bicycle Friendly University application just last year. So the stats you see on the screen are the answers we got from our 2025 BFU applicants. And we were really sort of surprised to see, we knew it was going to be, somewhere in this ballpark, that most places didn't have the answers yet, but we were really surprised to see just how few schools, had policies or had safe standards for what facilities should look like when charging their bikes, and even designated places for charging. So again, we're really excited to be developing new resources in partnership with UL for the college and university community through the BFU program. Next slide. And Anna will go into a lot more detail about this, but I just wanted to plug the National Bike Summit in March of 2026 will be the place where we're unveiling a model policy that Anna will talk more about. And we're also planning to have some sessions during the National Bike Summit about e-motos and e-bikes, because we know that that is a huge, growing and rapidly evolving topic for a lot of communities and a lot of advocates and a lot of parents. And so we recognize that, and we're adding resources, and we're discussing what to offer from a policy guidance standpoint here at the League. So we hope you can join us in Washington, D.C. next March, and stay tuned for more. And with that, I will hand it back to Corey and then Anna.
Thanks so much, Amelia. I really appreciate the work that you're doing at the League to support e-bike safety and just providing that expertise and knowledge, and from a national perspective as another e-bike leader in our transportation field. So thank you so much. And I will now turn it over to Anna to talk a little bit more about e-bike safety work happening at UL Standards and Engagement. So Anna, I'll go ahead and turn this over to you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. And thanks, Amelia, for kind of running through the beginnings of our partnership with the League of American Bicyclists, and kind of teeing up what I'm going to be sharing today, which is some of that research that came out of seeing that a lot of campuses didn't necessarily have a background or a policy or an approach to dealing with e-bikes on their campus. So what we did in partnership with the League is we sent out a survey to kind of investigate this. Next slide. So as I said, we sent out a survey, and this went out to 85 bicycle-friendly university campuses, which Amelia mentioned earlier. And the survey was designed both on some of the information that Amelia had heard through her work closely with these BFU campuses, as well as some qualitative in-depth interviews that my colleagues here at ULSC completed with 3 other leading BFU campuses who did have some experience with e-bike policies on campus. Next slide. So just a general overview of the demographic profile. We did have a distribution with slightly more schools, public or state, with about a third who were private institutions. We had a decent distribution across the nation. And most of our schools, again, were in the urban areas. I think this comes pretty naturally with more people who are biking in these areas. And then nearly half and half with the size of schools. So we had 58% who have over 20,000 students, and then 42% who have fewer. And then the specific individuals who responded to our survey tended to be transportation and parking services staff or sustainability officers. Next slide. So before I get into kind of the nitty-gritty details, I just want to run through our 5 key takeaways, just kind of as guideposts as we walk through the responses. So the first key takeaway that we found is that e-bikes are common on many campuses, and that is only increasing year over year. However, this increase in prevalence is paired with a gap in e-bike specific safety resources and infrastructure on many campuses. Our second, oh, sorry, go back. Oh, just one more. Thank you. Sorry, Corey. And our second key takeaway was that concerns around safety are significant, with nearly 7 in 10 respondents saying that they are concerned about road safety and battery and electrical safety. However, the actual incidences surrounding these topics do remain relatively low. So this isn't something that we want to alarm the public about, but it is something that is top of mind. Next slide. Thank you. So this, I was very happy to see this particular stat because it reflects what we saw from Amelia's survey. About 41% of respondents say that their campus does have an e-bike policy in place. However, many institutions don't have any plans to kind of update or enhance the policies that they do have, which, as we know, this is an issue that is evolving quickly. So having some sort of schedule to reevaluate is important. And finally, getting down to infractions and enforcement, we heard that enforcement is challenging and often inconsistent, with things like lack of resources and infrastructure, as well as the desire for convenience on the user's part, all playing a role in this issue. Next slide. Okay, so let's jump into the specific survey results. Next slide. All right, so as I mentioned, e-bikes are very common on campuses. 73% of respondents said that they saw either daily or weekly use at their institution. And when it comes to specific infrastructure that is offered on these institutions, we can see that things like bike parking areas, shared use pathways, and then specific bike lanes tend to be pretty common. But then when it comes to charging, so whether that be outdoor charging stations, indoor charging stations, charging lockers, these are things that are much less common. Next slide. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a slight disconnect between concerns and then actual incidents. So well over half of those surveyed say that they're concerned about things like road safety and then battery and electrical safety. However, as you can see over on the right, only about 40%, which is still a sizable percentage, but about 30% less than those who say they're concerned. So 40% say that they have experienced road safety incidents involved with e-bikes. So those are things like reports from pedestrians, collisions, or single rider accidents. And then only 22% say that they have seen battery or electrical safety incidents. So these are typically involving those lithium-ion batteries that power these devices, or unauthorized use of charging. So this could be charging in prohibited areas. Next slide. And then we asked respondents about the e-bike policies that they have on campus or that they have in development. Next slide. So 41% said that they do have an e-bike policy in place. Breaking down that number though, 32% say that their policy is limited. We did not necessarily define what comprehensive versus limited is at this point. That's something that, again, we wanted to look into in the future. But it is a good sign that nearly half are thinking about this in some capacity. One thing that I do want to call attention to, though, is down towards the bottom. Nearly a quarter say that they don't have a policy and that they don't have plans to develop one. Which, as I said before, and I will likely echo again, this is a situation where these devices are developing quickly, changing rapidly. So keeping kind of a pulse on the situation is pertinent. Next slide. And then looking at what specifically the policies that are currently in place or are in development, what they cover, we can see that storage and parking are the most commonly covered areas, but then things like charging, designated riding areas, and then safety usage requirements do tend to be a little lower on the priority list. And since ULSE is a standards development organization, we are always thinking about the safety standards around these devices. And as you can see, just around 4 in 10 say that their policy covers e-bike safety standard requirements. So making sure that those are either the bikes or the electrical components or the battery are certified for safety. Next slide. And then what I really want to call attention to here is that among the campuses that say that they ban e-bike parking and storage from inside campus buildings, concerns around fire risks related to the batteries were one of the top motivators for that. So again, although the prevalence of those incidents are low, for those that are thinking about them, they do tend to be higher on the list of concerns and are having an impact on how they're approaching their policy. And I won't go through the specific stats here just because it's quite a bit. But as you can see, storage and charging are prohibited in places like dorms, indoor bike rooms, and then sometimes even in places like parking garages and e-bike parking areas. Which does start to have an impact on where people are charging and how they're charging their devices, which I'll get into a little later. Next slide. And this is kind of the question that really led into the second stage of our partnership with the League of American Bicyclists, where we asked those who don't have a policy, what are some of the kind of barriers that have held you back from that? And as you can see, two of the top reasons were lack of staff capacity and then lack of knowledge and resources. So this is an area, again, where we really felt that we could step in and be that, start developing some of the resources and education in order to bridge the gap for these people. Next slide. All right. And then finally, covering off on infractions and enforcement. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, most people say that enforcement is challenging and inconsistent, with some variability on who is responsible for enforcing this, and that seems to be a challenge that varies campus to campus. Next slide. And some of the things that really play into this challenge are inadequate infrastructure and then a lack of awareness among students and staff about e-bike policies. So either users aren't sure where they can charge, or there's not a place that they are allowed to charge that is convenient or realistic for them during the day, or just going through their schedule. Next slide. So kind of looking at the whole picture, so only about half of campuses do feel that their policies are effective at preventing things like charging violations or usage violations, even when they're enforced. So that is something, of course, we'd like to see a little bit higher. And then 6 in 10 do believe that users are charging in prohibited areas. And 82% believe this is occurring because of, again, the convenience of charging in these non-designated areas, such as dorm rooms or in academic buildings, or a lack of sufficient infrastructure. So again, no designated charging areas or lockers or things like that. Next slide. Next slide. Just so to cover off on everything, kind of the big picture is e-bikes are common on campus, but there seems to be a lack of safety resources, education resources, and gaps in adhering to the policies that do exist because schools and universities just haven't had the capacity or opportunity to develop infrastructure for many of these users. Next slide. So the next steps that came out of this survey is we kind of heard again and again that from the schools that would like to develop policies, they really just didn't know where to start. So this year we have worked with a cohort of university staff. So from about, I think, 8 or 9 universities. And we've sat down with them 3 or 4 times now and kind of gotten their feedback and developed a model e-mobility policy where schools and institutions will have kind of a starting template with which they can take it and run, just to develop a policy that works well for their campus, make tweaks as needed. But basically, we just wanted to give these institutions a resource so that they're not having to reinvent the wheel, essentially. And this is something that's still ongoing. We're still tweaking it, making sure that it has all of the resources that will be helpful for institutions. But we will be officially releasing it at the 2026 League of American Bicyclists Summit in DC that Amelia mentioned. So hopefully we'll get to see you all there, or at least you'll tune in and get to find the policy and give us any feedback, because this is something that likely will be evolving over time as well. Next slide. Awesome. Okay, and if you would like to look at a more in-depth report of any of the results I covered today, you can just scan this QR code or visit our website to find all of our e-bike and e-mobility safety resources.
Thanks so much, Anna. Appreciate your presentation and bringing some data. That was one of the questions. One of our e-bike safety needs was just more data. So appreciate the work that you've been doing. And for our Safe Routes practitioners, I think there are a lot of takeaways from what's happening on college campuses and seeing how we can, adapt some of those takeaways to the K-12 schools that you might be working with the Safe Routes to School program. So thank you so much, Anna. And I'd like to welcome our final speaker, JC Porter from Arizona State University, to talk about some of the work that's happening on campus in Arizona. So JC, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you. And this group holds a special place in my heart. At my previous university, I oversaw a bike shop called the Cycle Learning Center. And a part of that education program we offered was we'd have our bike mechanics go out into the elementary schools and actually do kind of bike rodeos and kind of instructional classes for students how to fix their bikes properly. So this is a group that's close to my heart. So thank you for allowing me to come here. So JC Porter, Director of Parking and Transportation here at Arizona State University. Also a City of Tempe Bike Hero of the Year 2018. And then I also sit on the board of the International Parking and Mobility Institute. So wheels are in my blood, so to speak. So to get to where we're at now, it's always helpful to start in the past. And so uh, our university was kind of had a head start on a lot of other places. So we actually had our first policy in place referring to electric mobility devices going back to 2015, back when the hoverboards first came onto scene. And uh, so we started our policy then. Fast forward to 2018 when the shared use scooters really started to take off, and City of Tempe was where ASU is located, was one of the first places that the shared use scooters started popping up. We dealt with 18 different scooter companies, and at one time we had close to 3,500 electric scooters in and around campus. So we had to figure out a strategy, and we had to figure it out real fast. So next slide, please. So how we were able to kind of uh, wrangle, so to speak, the shared use scooters was we came up with a geofence, but because of our policy, they were actually banned on campus, so they were not allowed on campus. So what we did is we created these bike corrals or little parking spaces for the scooters all around campus, and worked with the scooter companies that geofence our campus off limits for these scooters to be ridden. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, at that same time, we started to see the decline of bike ridership and also bike share bikes. So we had a bike share on our campus that in 2020 unfortunately went bankrupt. We also had a lot of dockless bike share companies that were in around our campus that also went away once the electric shared scooter program started to pop up. Next slide, please. What we started to see is more and more personally owned electric mobility devices, like the electric bikes, electric skateboards, and the electric scooters. And so we quickly had to start looking at different ways that we could help accommodate our students as this mode continued to grow. Next slide, please. Another thing that we were working on is just making sure that we had the adequate infrastructure needed, which meant anywhere from bike racks to bike storage areas. As Amelia mentioned before, having the proper bike storage is key. We actually implemented 3 bike valets on campus, and we have multiple bike storage areas that are lockable, and then over 20,000 bike racks. We were really lucky. The bike racks that we chose actually work really well with personally owned scooters, which I'll show in the next few slides. But having this bike infrastructure in place before the electric mobility devices really hit has been really helped us to be able to stay in the forefront and to help keep safety as the main priority for all users involved. Next slide. So kind of here's where we're at now, and some things that have changed that kind of made us progress to where we're at. Next slide, please. So we've seen a reduction of students on campus, and it's for multiple reasons. So although we're still the largest university in the United States with over 82,000 on-campus students, what we're finding is more and more students are kind of doing the same thing that a lot of us full-time workers are doing, where they do 2 days, 2 days of working in person and 3 days working at home. Students are doing something similar, but what they're doing is they're taking a few of their classes online, and then they're taking the rest of their classes in person, which is kind of reduced their presence on campus. So we're not as crowded as we used to be, which is a good thing. But at the same time, we're trying to see how much we continue to grow. So next slide, please. Some other changes that we started to see was let the students were less reliance on public transportation. So we have a streetcar, we have a light rail, we have a bus system. And even 5 years later, we are still haven't seen anywhere near the increase back to where we were pre-2020, except for we run our own shuttle bus system. That shuttle bus system has actually garnered more ridership than we were seeing before 2020. So students are coming back in part of our public transportation, just not in all of it. Next slide, please. We're also starting to see a reduction of the shared use scooters in and around campus. And so, like I said, we used to have 18. We're now down to 2 scooter companies that are working with City of Tempe, and we're continuing to see a decrease in those riderships year over year, as what we're finding is more and more students find it more economical just to buy their own scooters or e-bikes or e-skateboards as opposed to renting the shared use scooters. Next slide, please. We also, interestingly enough, we're seeing an increase in people driving. And so we're seeing a lot more people, a lot more of our students driving cars to campus. Next slide, please. And then again, as a fellow bike person, it really breaks my heart that we're seeing a reduction of bikes on campus. And so previously we would see all these bike racks would be full, and we would have over 20 to 30,000 bikes on campus at any given time. And I have a few theories on why we're seeing less and less bikes, and I'll get into that in the next slides. Next slide, please. And so kind of here's the numbers, so to speak. So here's one of our bike valets, and here's the number of bikes that we park in our bike valet per year. As you can see, it's slowly creeping up, but the numbers are a little bit misleading because in FY24 is the first year we started to allow electric mobility devices inside our bike valets. So that's really kind of helped increase our utilization in our bike valets, is allowing electric scooters, electric bikes, and electric skateboards also park in our bike valets with all of our acoustic bikes, so to speak. Next slide, please. And so we're really starting to see the shift from traditional bicycles to electric mobility devices. This year, it's almost flipped completely, where we're 50-50, if not 60-40, with electric mobility devices that we're seeing on campus. Next slide, please. And it's just not a day issue. This is actually just a global phenomena. And so here's a slide of just showing the decrease in traditional bikes and the rise of e-bikes. And then next slide, please. And then this just shows that the overall segment is growing dramatically year over year. And so this slide is more just to say that this isn't a fad. This is something that is probably going to continue to grow and grow. So then next slide, please. And I think one of the other main reasons that it's growing so quickly is that the prices of the electric mobility devices continue to decrease. So if you look at these numbers, they've gone down dramatically at the same time as you see bike prices have kind of increased year over year. And so what we're finding is our students are looking for the least expensive mode of transportation possible. And as it turns out, the electric scooter and electric bike is turning out to be the least expensive transportation mode for them. Next slide, please. We can skip this one. Wait, sorry, we're running out of time. And then this just speaks to the policy that we had in place. And then because we had electric mobility devices banned on campus, the students weren't parking them outside in the bike racks like we'd wanted to. They're bringing them inside the buildings to kind of hide them. And so we needed to fix that issue. And then we also needed to figure out how we could help students properly lock their bikes and scooters. And so because they become the #1 stolen on campus, surpassing bikes, which have previously always been the #1 stolen items on campus. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the whole reason why we're here is just talking about kind of the lithium-ion batteries and how we're going to keep them out of the buildings, and what type of charging infrastructure are we going to provide for our students to be able to do the right thing and keep their scooters, bikes outside. Next slide. As I mentioned before, we really lucked out, and our bike racks actually work perfectly for the personally owned electric scooters. So what we did to help educate our students where to park them and the let them know that these just aren't bike racks, that they're also scooter racks, is we shortened the distance between the bike racks, and then we labeled the areas that these areas are for e-scooter parking only. And as you can see, it's taking off, and the students are learning really quickly. And as soon as we implemented this, the scooters and e-bikes and the skateboards were no longer being brought inside the building. Next slide, please. And then here's something that we are able to come up. So this is something that we have created in-house. So myself and our Norm Mutabi, who's a landscape architect, designed these charging stations, and we charge them as simply as possible. So you bring your own charger, and then your charger, you're able to lock up inside the little box to be able to keep people from walking away with your charger. And then we used our racks to be able to lock your scooters, bikes, and then we also have a skateboard dock too that you can lock your skateboards in. And then the idea is you charge your mobility device when you need to, and then at the same time, you move it to the other places to park. And so this is the first installment of mini charging stations that we're implementing in and around campus. And I did see it pop up real quick that yes, we do use Garage 529 for our bike registration. And we've actually gotten to the point now where we don't differentiate between bike and scooters. We just consider them all mobility devices, and we register them the same, where Garage 529, you're able to differentiate between whether it's an e-scooter or a bike. And the gravel, I would like to say, was for a fire issue, as more just a cost issue that we couldn't afford to put the pavers or concrete down, so they did pea gravel. So it was just a cost reduction and not kind of a safety issue. But what we have done is we've put these charging locations outside of our resident halls, and because of Arizona, we have to have them covered, not for rain or snow like probably everybody else, but because of heat. So we found that if we have it covered and then inside a secured location, all of our resident halls have a fenced in area to be able to only allow the people who live in that apartments to be able to go into the apartments. So we try to keep them inside those fenced in areas so that only the residents can use those. We've also found that our commuters really don't need to utilize any charging stations. We do have some charging stations in our bike valets, but very few people need them. And then I did see the electrical draw. We did look at the electrical draw, and the scooters are about the same as a laptop. So it's very negligible. So we just offered it no charge for the students. And I think the next slide is more questions. Yeah.
Hi, JC. Thanks so much. You already got us started on our Q&A here, and I
Yeah.
see people have been answering the Q&A box and a great chat happening. So we're saving the chat. We're saving all the resources as well. So if you missed anything, don't worry about it. We'll send that out afterwards. So I'm going to invite actually JC to come back on, and also Jennifer and Amelia and Anna to answer a few questions we might not have gotten to in the chat box. First off, just thank you all so much for your expertise. We really appreciate it here. So I'm going to go through and just pull a few questions that we saw here in the chat. We actually had a question about if there are any e-learning resources or tools for e-scooters. They were talking about e-bikes today, but oftentimes e-scooters and e-bikes are kind of a part of the same conversation. So curious if there's anything that you all have seen when it comes to e-scooters and educational or safety resources for those mobility devices.
We have a video on our website, the walk.asu.edu, and we're actually just looking to update that video to add even more information on electric mobility devices. So more to come. We're actually getting ready to shoot that video here soon. Again, I'm lucky where we do everything in the winter because that's when it gets to be nice. So unfortunately, you all are probably getting ready for snow.
Yeah, for the opposite situations there. But yeah, that's awesome. As I saw a question in the chat about e-bike and scooter educational programs for kids. So I think we dropped some links in the chat as well. We have some great safe routes programs. They're doing e-bike safety education. So keep an eye out for the links to those resources afterwards. We'll make sure that you all get those. Another question for you, JC, about Garage 529. If you've seen, if there's any benefit with Garage 29 reduction to theft or being able to reunite owners with their devices?
Yeah, that's actually been the biggest thing, as it's really helped reunite the owners with their bikes, scooters, those types of things. The biggest issue that the police have is when they uh, kind of find the bike that has been stolen, is they don't know who the owner is, and a lot of times the owner doesn't keep the necessary documentation to prove that the bike is theirs. And so what we found is having Garage 529 helps the owner be able to kind of keep the necessary information they need to be able to do the police report, and then also to help the police reunite them back with their mobility device. And so it's been very beneficial in that way. We've even had stories from our police officers when they've been able to walk up to somebody who has 2 or 3 bikes and say, "Hey, yeah, I noticed you got a nice bike collection. Are they all yours?" And then
Yeah.
they can look down and they can see the Garage 529 sticker on the bike, and then they can actually look it up right there on the website that they can see, and they can actually see, well, you're not Susie Smith, so I'm pretty sure that bike's not yours, and you're
Right.
not. So yes, it really has helped the police to be able to kind of help them be able to do what they need to do. So it's been really beneficial, and I'd highly recommend it. And the other nice thing that we like is that it's not just limited to City of Tempe or to ASU. The bike registration or scooter registration actually moves with them to wherever the students end up moving to. So it's their bike registration or their scooter registration. It's not owned by ASU or by the City of Tempe, which is something that kind of differentiates it from others. So then no matter where it goes, the police can find who the owner of that uh, bike or scooter is.
Great, thank you. I know that's another important part of this conversation. There's the safety piece and also just being able to keep track of your device and keep it with you. Okay, thank you. I know we're a minute over time, so I do want to respect people's time. I know that we have our speakers who've been very generous with their time. We'd answered some questions live in the Q&A box as well, so I'll be sure to share those out. And anything that we didn't get to, I'll make sure that I get the responses to those and share them out as well. But I just want to thank all of you. So JC, Amelia, Anna, Jennifer, thank you all so much for being our partners in e-bike safety, for lending your expertise and wisdom to this conversation that we're going to continue. So this isn't the end of our e-bike safety conversations. There will be a lot more to follow. Thank you again so much for to UL and Standards and Engagement for sponsoring this session. We really appreciate it, along with our summit session. And we look forward to continuing that partnership as well. I will be in touch soon with the recording to this webinar, the resources, the chat. Any other questions that you all have for us, please feel free to let us know. We at the partnership love to help you all. We also have a Safe Routes to School Google group where we have a lot of conversations, including some about e-bikes and e-bike safety. So if you're curious about registering to be a part of that group, feel free to email me or Margot, who manages our communications. And I think those are my very quick final reminders. So thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Speakers, wonderful job. I know that I learned a lot today, and I'm really looking forward to continuing our conversation around e-bike safety. So thanks, everyone. Have a great one. And also thank you to everybody who was like sharing links and resources in the chat. I was kind of following along, and we're all learning about this together. So appreciate everybody in the chat as well being so generous with your expertise and time. So thank you all so much. Have a great one. Bye.